Hi everyone, Aditya here. Welcome to my channel. So, we will continue our AWS comprehensive course, and in this session, we are going to cover AWS Lambda destinations. So, until now, we have seen synchronous and asynchronous ways of invoking Lambda, and also we have seen event source mapping also. Now, in this session, we are going to discuss about AWS Lambda destinations and what is the use of those destinations. In case of synchronous execution, any failed events are sent back to the source itself. For retry and success events for retry, right? In case of any synchronous execution, any failed events are sent back to source itself for retry, right? So anything is failed, we will send back to the source and source is responsible for retrying the failures. And success events are sent back to the source to notify succeeded. Even the success events also will send back to the source and say this event is succeeded. So that is how synchronous will work. But when it comes to asynchronous execution, right? But in case of asynchronous invocation, we are missing the status. We are missing the status of the events, whether they are failed or not, right? So in case of asynchronous execution, what we are going to do is we are going to execute our Lambda function and we'll invoke the Lambda function, and after that the source will do its own work, right? It won't care about what is the status we are returning back, because we are not returning back actually in case of asynchronous execution. So in that case, how could you track the status, right? How could you track the failed and success events? So to send these events irrespective of success or failure, AWS introduced a feature called destinations. So, to track the successful events and also failed events, we will set up a destination, and all the asynchronous invocation, if you mention a destination, those results will be go to those destinations. And in that destination, you can do further processing logic, or you can update the DB. So you can do whatever logic inside it, your business logic or custom logic. But here, the intention of the destinations is to provide some place to store the success information and also the failure information. I think you are getting somewhat familiarized, right? It looks similar to DLQ, right? But in DLQ, where we send the failed events for further processing, so that we will only store the failed events, right? So in Lambda, we have DLQ feature, and we will enable the DLQ feature, and we will again read from the DLQ for further processing. But here in the destination case, what we are going to do is irrespective of success or failure, we can send. But in case of DLQ, you can only able to send only the failed events. So that is the key difference, right? So here, if you see this point, right, what about successful events? Where we are tracking the success info, right? For that, these destinations are perfect place where you can send the response of the async invocations to some destinations. Okay, we'll continue further and see about destinations more. And if you see, the AWS supports the following destinations. So what are the services you can add as destination is AWS Lambda. So from one Lambda, you can send to another Lambda for further processing, right? To store that information and store it in a DB, right? You can do that. And otherwise, you can send from Lambda to SNS. So whenever you invoke a asynchronous execution or invoke a Lambda asynchronously, the failed or success thing you can send to SNS, SQS, or even Event Bridge also. So these are the support AWS provides. Right? These are the services AWS supports to add as a destination to our Lambda while we are invoking it asynchronously. Okay. And the good thing here is you can send the success event to one destination and failed events to other destination. So this was a very good news, right? You no need to send the success and fail to only one destination. So you can specify multiple destinations. So you can send fail to the failed queue and success to the succeeded queue. So you can create two queues, two SNS, two lambdas, which will process them separately, right? And here we have one note. If you observe this note, right, works only for async execution and sync we don't need to because anyway lambda send back response to the source. Yeah, so yeah, this is we discussed anyway. So it work only for the async execution, not for the synchronous execution. So we don't need to think about synchronous here, because only at the time of asynchronous only we keep lost of the statuses, right? We'll keep track of this. We will lost the track of the statuses because that is executing asynchronously. We need these destinations for uh, tracking or for further processing also. Okay, we'll move on to the hands-on session. So in this hands-on, right, as we discussed, we are going to work on Lambda destinations. So I'm opening my Lambda here and let it open. So yeah, I have deleted my previous Lambda functions, so I have to create a Lambda function. So I'm just clicking on this create. I'm not going to tell all the steps because I have covered in the previous sessions, right? All the from scratch, and after that we need to add as a Lambda and Lambda hyphen what we're going to check is destination test. Okay, and I'm going to use Python 3.12 as my runtime, and I'm going to click on function, right? I'm not going to change anything. I'm just clicking on create function. So this will create our new Lambda function, which name is Lambda destination test, and we need to wait a couple of seconds, or sorry, a couple of minutes to create it. Right? It's based on our this thing network bandwidth. So since Lambda was created, right, you can see successfully created the function Lambda destination test, and our Lambda is now available. Now what we have to do is we need to add a trigger, right? And the trigger will asynchronously invoke the Lambda, and whatever happens, right, even success or failure inside the Lambda, we need to send to some destinations. So for that, I am going to add some trigger. So what I'm going to do is for asynchronous execution, I'm going to use S3 event notifications. Okay, for that I need to create an S3 bucket. So I'm opening S3 in a new tab. Okay, so now the S3 has been opening. I'm going here. So it will open in couple of seconds. Yeah, it's opened. So we don't have any buckets right now. I'm going to create my own bucket. So click on create bucket, and here details I'm not going to explain because you know, right, in the previous sessions. Here in the create bucket section, I'm going to give name of my bucket. So my bucket name is Lambda, and this I will give bucket is the name Lambda destination bucket, and the ownership everything I am keeping by default, and I'm going to click on create bucket. Okay, I have only given the name, that's it. So the bucket is successfully created now. If you see here the Lambda destination bucket, and this is our bucket. So what I am going to do is I'm going to enable S3 event notification. So how can we enable? We can go to the property section and insert the property search for the event notification section, right? In the event notification section, click on this create event notification. So you can give name, right? Event notification for Lambda. We can give like this, and prefix and suffix we are not giving any values, and we're going to select the event type as object creation, which covers all these events, creation events. And finally we are going to select the destination, which is Lambda, and here in the drop down we can able to see, right, Lambda destinations test, that is the Lambda we created. So I'm going to click on this thing, right, and we selected our Lambda also. Finally click on this save changes, which will save this event notification. So if you see here, we have added one event notification which is of event type, right? All object create events. So any object creates which will send an event notification to Lambda. Okay, and we have Lambda here. So we have added the trigger, right? We'll see whether it is adding here or not by refreshing it. So I am refreshing here, and now if you see, it will add a trigger here. Now anything if you upload S3, it will invoke Lambda. So this thing we have already seen in the previous session. Now I'm going to code and going to do few changes here, right? First I'm going to print the event. Okay, I'm going to print the event, and return I'm keeping it same, or I will change hello from Aditya, right? I just give my name simply, and finally going to deploy these changes into Lambda function. So now it's deployed. Now we'll see. So we are good. We have our Lambda function set up. We have our event notification set up for the S3. Now we'll add our destinations. So I will add my first destination, right? So if I click on that add our destinations or add destination button, this page opened here. Here it is saying add destination, and here you can configure your destination configuration. So inside here you can select the source. So as we discussed, it works for the asynchronous invocation and even for event source mapping invocation only for streams. I think we haven't discussed about streams, so just ignore this option and just concentrate on asynchronous invocation. Okay, so here you have a condition, right? As we discussed, whether it succeed or failed, based on that you can set your destinations. So here on success, right? I am saying my destination could be a queue, and for that I need a queue. So we don't have any queues right now, so I need to create a queue. So I'm going to SQS, right? I'm opening the SQS in a new tab, and yeah, it is loading. And I have deleted the previous queues, so I need to create a new queue. Okay, so I'm going to create a standard queue, a normal queue. I'm not going to tell all the information to you. In the create queue section, I'm going to give the name here. So name of my queue is SQS Lambda Success queue. So this SQS Lambda success queue will store all the successful events. So I am keeping all the information as it is. I'm not changing anything. I'm going to click on this create queue, which will create the queue for me. And if you see here, the queue has been created. That is SQS Lambda success queue. Now, since here queue is created, we'll see in the Lambda section, right, where we are adding destination, whether this is reflecting or not. And if I refresh here and search for it, yeah, we have SQS Lambda success queue available in the list. I am selecting it. So we have selected, right? And also here in the permission section, you just observe if your execution role does not have the required permissions for the selected destination, then Lambda will attempt to add the permissions to the role. Then you don't need to worry about Lambda has access to this queue or not, because it will automatically add that. Okay, so thanks to Lambda for this feature, and we are going to click on save. Right, before clicking on save, just review this. We added a destination, which is a synchronous invocation, and condition is only success events go to this queue. Okay, and save. So it's saving. We'll wait for some time and let it complete adding its destination. Okay, okay. If you see here, the destination has been added. That is Amazon SQS, and we'll try to execute this, right? So what we will do is we're going to add some object into the S3, and it will go to the Lambda asynchronously. Since it's a success event, it has to go to SQS. Okay, we'll check that. So for that first thing, I'm going to my S3 bucket, and I'm going to upload some object to this bucket. So I'm going to upload any object from my local machine, and I'm just checking here any object available for me. Um, Let me check for it. Yeah, I have my resume available. I'm opening my resume here, and I'm going to click on this upload button. So it will take a couple of minutes to upload based on your network bandwidth. So for me, it's quick, and I'm closing this thing. So if you see here, my resume has been added, being added into this bucket. We'll see it's triggered our Lambda or not, right? So that thing you can confirm by going to monitor section and open Vwin CloudWatch logs. And here inside you can check for the log stream created or not. And if you see here a new log stream created. So I'm just opening the log stream, and you can able to see, right? It got invoked successfully, and also from which event we're getting the invocation, and what file we uploaded, those information here display. Now we'll go to queue, whether it is there in queue or not. Okay, so I'm going to queues here, and if you see here for my SQS Lambda success queue, I have one message. Okay, so I'm going to open and see the message. So for that, we need to go to this send or receive messages section, and in above you can send messages to the queue, and below you can receive messages from the queue. So for that, you have to poll for messages. So if I click on poll for messages, it is showing one message here. So if I open this message and if I enlarge it, you can able to see, right? It has some versioning information, request context information, and event name is object created. Okay, from the AWS S3 event source is AWS S3, and we'll see for the name what is, yeah, the name of the bucket is Lambda destination bucket, and the key, right, is Arepalli Aditya, sorry, Aditya Arepalli resume docs and its size. So it's working, right? Great. Now we'll check for the failed events also. Success is good, it's working. We'll go for failed. Again, I'm going to Lambda and going to change the code to stimulate the failure scenario. So for that, here, right, we are returning some value. Instead of that, I'm commenting this thing, and instead of returning some value, what we are going to do is we are going to raise an exception. So for that, we need to write raise an exception and inside dummy exception. Okay, just, and this is good. I'm going to deploy the code, and the code is updating and successfully updated the function lambda destination test. Now again, we'll try to upload one more document here. So I'm uploading and add files, and I can upload the same document or we can upload the other document also. So yeah, I will go for this big WOW PDF. I think it will be huge. Okay, we'll see how much time it will take to upload, and it is taking some time. Yeah, it's uploaded quickly. Okay, I have uploaded LL plus P plus O PDF. So I'm closing this. My other file also uploaded, and we'll see to the Lambda whether it's invoked or not, right? For that, we will go to monitor section, right? I'm closing the earlier opened CloudWatch. Okay, again, I'm going to open CloudWatch logs, and it's loading in the log groups under our Lambda section, right? You can able to see two log streams. The first one is the recent one. The second one is the first one we have triggered. If I open the first one, you can able to see there was an error. That is dummy exception which we throw. Okay, fine. Now we'll see it reached destination or not. Okay. So for that, first we'll go to the queue, queue section and see how many messages available. If you see only one message available, and if I try to get that message, right, poll for that message, the message is the same message, right? That means the failed event didn't come here because this is only for success events. So what we need to do is we need to configure another queue to store the failed events. It's not only queue, you can configure any other service also like SNS or another Lambda. So for simplicity's sake, I'm creating another queue. So I'm clicking on create queue, and here I'm giving name as SQS Lambda destination or failed. Okay, failed queue. So it stores all the failed information. So I'm creating the queue. Okay, the queue created. If I go to the queues, if you can see that success has only one event and failed zero messages. So we have already added success queue, but we need to add another destination, right, for failure. So for that, I am creating this add destination button, and source is synchronous invocation, and the condition is on failure, and we are going to select SQS queue, and the destination ARN is SQS Lambda failed queue. And if there is no permission, Lambda will automatically creates a permission for us, and I'm clicking on save button. So it is saving the destination. So now we have two destination, one failure case, one success case. Success case we have already seen. So here you can see, right, two. Those two are these two. So on success, on failure. Okay. I think we have to again upload the failed request. So that is the only thing. So sorry for that. We have to again, I'm clicking on add files and go to some file, right? So you will also do these kind of mistakes. So you can learn from my mistakes. So I'm uploading the file. So it will take some time and it's uploaded and I'm closing it, right? And the failed event will come here. We'll wait for some time because internal retrace also will happen. Okay, I think this came here, the failed one, because we added exactly the third retry of the last failed item, it seems. So it's a good thing for us. So the failed events are coming to the queue. So we'll go inside, right? We'll go to send and receive messages and now click on this poll for message and you can able to see, right, one message in the failed queue. Nice. And I'm opening this message and I'm unlodging it and you can able to see, right, LLBBO PDF and right, it is coming from S3. So likewise you can navigate, right, you can route your asynchronous invocation results to different destinations. So here queues, these two queues are two different things, right? You can add an SNS, you can add an SQS, you can add event bridge and another Lambda also.